Welcome back. Tonight's story is about a twin sister who stole every piece of paper that proved I existed, ran for the desert 2 weeks before my wedding, and never once stopped to wonder who would be sitting on the other side of the bank's fraud desk when the alerts went off. Pour the coffee. Stay close. My sister took my name to steal $60,000. She did not know I was the one who would find her. My name is Hadley June Vance. I am 36 years old. I live in a quiet 2-bedroom on the north end of Boise, and I work as a senior fraud investigator for the second largest regional bank in the Mountain West. I am the woman whose desk the alerts land on when a card application smells wrong. On a Tuesday morning in April, 8 days before my wedding, 3 alerts dropped into my queue inside a 40-minute window. Same applicant date of birth, same social security number, same maiden name. 3 different cards, all approved, all maxed within 96 hours. The name on every one of them was mine. I sat at my desk in a navy cardigan that still smelled faintly of the lavender sachet my fiancé kept in our linen drawer. The office heater clicked on. My coffee went cold in my hand. Somewhere in the back of my throat, a child's voice I had not heard in 20 years said, "Oh, of course, it was always going to be her." If your gut already tells you who did this, tell me in the comments. I want to see how many of us saw it coming from a mile away. We grew up in a yellow house on Linden Street in a town outside Spokane that had 1 stoplight and 1 bakery and 1 church everyone pretended to like. My twin sister was named Hollis. I was Hadley. Our mother liked the way the names sounded together on a Christmas card. She used to say it with a small, proud smile, the kind that did not reach her eyes. Hadley and Hollis. As if we were a matched set of teacups instead of 2 separate children. From the outside, we looked like a catalog. Father in insurance, mother in real estate, a station wagon that smelled like cheap pine cleaner and the rubber of new floor mats, Sunday roast every week, a father who said grace in a voice that sounded borrowed from a man on the radio, the kind of family the neighbors waved at without ever stepping inside. Inside, the rules were quieter and uglier. Hollis was the favorite. Not in a way anyone said out loud, in the way the last cookie always ended up on her plate, in the way her bad grades were a phase and mine were a character flaw, in the way her mistakes were stories the family laughed about at Thanksgiving, and mine were things our mother sighed about into the phone with her sister Marlene. There were 2 memories I carried with me into my adult life, like stones in a coat pocket. The first was a Halloween. I was 8. I had spent 2 weeks gluing felt scales onto a green dragon costume. Hollis decided the morning of the party that she wanted to be a dragon too. My mother walked into my room, lifted the costume off my bed without looking at me, and handed it to her. She told me to wear my Easter dress and be cheerful about it. The Easter dress was white and itched at the collar. I remember the smell of the rubber band in my hair and the wet leaves on the porch and the way the other mothers smiled at Hollis and said, "Oh, what a wonderful dragon." The second memory was a bank account. I was 16. I had worked 2 summers at a frozen yogurt counter on Main Street, the kind that smelled like sugar dust and bleach. $640. My father took me to the credit union to open my first savings account. Hollis came along because Hollis always came along. 2 weeks later, my mother handed Hollis the same envelope of paperwork because Hollis wanted to buy a guitar. The teller did not blink. The signatures looked close enough. My $640 became a guitar Hollis played twice. My father said it was a lesson in keeping better track of my things. That was the language they used. Lesson, character, real world, independence. They had a whole sanitized vocabulary for the parts of us they were quietly hollowing out. I learned to keep my mouth shut. I learned to keep my receipts. I learned to write down every dollar in a small green notebook that I hid behind a loose board in my closet. I did not know it then, but I was already training for the job I would do for a living. The triggering incident, the one that finally crossed the line, came when I was 28. I had just moved to Boise. I had a small apartment over a Thai restaurant on 8th Street, a quiet job at a community credit union, and a boyfriend named Daniel, who was steady, the way a porch light is steady. Hollis called me out of the blue. She was sweet on the phone. She used the voice she used on our mother, the soft sing-song one. She said she was finally getting her life together. She was moving to Reno for a fresh start. She wanted to know if I would co-sign a small auto loan to help her get there. I said no. Politely, I told her I loved her and that I could not. I told her I would send $300 for gas. She said she understood. She said she was proud of me for setting boundaries. That was the word she used. Boundaries. The word she had heard our mother say into the phone for years, like it was a slur. 2 days later, my mother called. Her voice was high and bright. She said, "Isn't it lovely that you and Hollis are talking again?" She said, "Your father and I have been telling Hollis what an inspiration you are. She used the word inspiration the way some people use a knife. I should have known then. I should have heard the sound under the words. But I did not. I was 28 years old, and a small, stupid, hopeful part of me still wanted to believe my mother could be proud of me out loud. The core of this story, the part that still lives in my body, happened over 4 days in April of the year I turned 36. I had been engaged for 14 months to a man named Wesley Pratt. Wesley was a high school art teacher with paint under his fingernails and a laugh that started low in his chest. He had asked me to marry him on a Tuesday in February, in the kitchen of our small house, with no ring and no speech, just a steady look across the counter and the words, "I would like to do the rest of this with you." I said yes before he finished the sentence. The wedding was set for the last Saturday, in April. Small, 40 people. A barn outside Eagle. Wesley's mother had sewn the bunting by hand. My maid of honor, a woman named Camille Ortega, who had been my closest friend since my first month in Boise, had spent 3 weekends arranging mason jars and dried lavender. I had a dress hanging in a garment bag on the back of the bedroom door. I had a wedding folder on the kitchen counter that held the venue contract, the marriage license, the seating chart, and my social security card. I had kept that card in the folder because I had needed it the week before to update my name change forms in advance. That was the mistake I will live with for the rest of my life. The Monday 8 days before the wedding, my mother called and said Hollis wanted to come early. She said Hollis wanted to help. She said Hollis had been working on herself and wanted to surprise me. I said yes because I was tired and because part of me, the little girl part, still wanted a sister at her wedding. Hollis arrived on a Wednesday afternoon in a rental car with a single black duffel bag. She hugged me on the porch and cried into my shoulder. She smelled like the cheap vanilla body spray she had worn since we were 13. She said, "I have missed you so much, Hadley." She slept in our guest room for 2 nights. On Friday morning, she was gone. The guest bed was made. The duffel bag was gone. A coffee cup sat in the sink, rinsed. There was no note. I checked the kitchen counter. The wedding folder was still there. I opened it. The marriage license was still there. The seating chart was still there. My social security card was not. I stood in my kitchen in a gray sweatshirt with the sleeves pushed up. The dishwasher hummed. The refrigerator clicked. Somewhere outside, a dog barked twice and then stopped. I did not cry. I did not call anyone. I poured a second cup of coffee. I sat down at the table. I said out loud, to no one, "All right." All right then. That was Friday. The Tuesday after, the alerts hit my queue at work. The rescue, if you want to call it that, came in the form of a quiet woman named Beverly Knox. Beverly was the head of my unit. She was 61 years old, wore reading glasses on a beaded chain, and had been at the bank for 29 years. She walked past my desk that Tuesday morning, saw my face, and stopped. She did not ask if I was okay. She set down her travel mug. She pulled up the empty chair beside me. She said, "Talk to me, Hadley." I told her in one flat sentence. My sister took my social security card from my house last Friday and used it to open 3 credit cards in my name. The applications are sitting in my queue. The bank that issued them is us. Beverly did not blink. She took off her reading glasses. She set them on my desk. She said, "You will not touch those applications. You will document everything you have just told me, in writing, in the next 20 minutes. You will sign it. I will sign it. Then we will hand it to the financial crimes team, and they will hand it to the U.S. Marshals, because credit fraud across state lines is federal. You will not be the investigator on this case. You will be the victim, and you will let us do our job." I started to argue, out of habit, out of the muscle memory of a lifetime of being told that asking for help was weakness dressed in a costume. Beverly held up one hand. She said, "Hadley, one small human question. Who taught you that you were supposed to clean up after the people who hurt you?" I did not have an answer. I just sat there in my navy cardigan with my cold coffee, and for the first time in 28 years, I let someone else carry the folder. If you have ever had a sibling treat your name like a thing they were allowed to spend, drop a 1 in the comments. I want to know I am not the only one. The weeks after were quiet in a way I did not expect. Wesley took the wedding off the calendar without making me ask. He moved it to the first Saturday in June. He did not call it a postponement. He called it making more room for the people we wanted there. Camille came over on a Saturday morning with 2 grocery bags and made soup in our kitchen and did not say a single soft, pitying thing. She just chopped carrots and let me sit on the floor with our rescue dog, a brindle mutt named Hooper that Wesley had brought home from a shelter in Nampa the year before. My mother called 9 times in the first 3 days. I did not pick up. On the 4th day, I sent one text. It said, "Hollis used my social security card to open 3 credit cards. The bank where I work is the bank that issued them. I am cooperating with federal investigators. Please do not call me again until I call you." She did not write back for almost a month. When she did, the message said only, "Your father is heartbroken." I read it twice and then I deleted it. I did not feel anything. I felt, for the first time in my whole life, the absence of the feeling I had always carried like a low fever. The case itself moved faster than I expected. Beverly's team pulled the application metadata. All 3 applications had been submitted within 40 minutes of each other from the same device. The device fingerprint matched a low-end Android phone. The IP address resolved to a budget motel off Interstate 80 in Reno, the kind of place with a flickering vacancy sign and a vending machine in the breezeway. The financial crimes team called the Marshals on Wednesday. The Marshals called the Reno field office on Thursday. On Friday afternoon, at 2:14 p.m. Mountain Time, a deputy U.S. Marshal named Raul Esquivel walked into room 118 of that motel and found Hollis sitting on the edge of a queen bed in a gray hoodie, eating a microwave burrito and watching daytime television. That is the part of the story I tell people when they ask. That is the part that sounds like a movie. The part I do not usually tell is what happened the following October, when Hollis was out on supervised release awaiting sentencing, and our father called to ask if I would come to the house in Spokane for a family meeting. I went. I did not go to save anyone. I went to end something in my own voice. I drove the 4.5 hours alone in a small silver hatchback that still smelled faintly of Hooper's wet fur from a hike the weekend before. The yellow house on Linden Street had not changed in 20 years. Same porch, same wreath, same smell of cheap pine cleaner when my mother opened the door. Hollis was sitting at the kitchen table in a beige cardigan, her hair pulled back, looking small in a way she had never let herself look in front of me. My mother was making coffee. My father was standing by the window with his hands in his pockets, doing the thing he did when he was about to deliver a speech he thought was generous. He started talking before I sat down. He said the family had been through enough. He said Hollis had made a mistake. He said the bank was already going to be made whole. He said it was time for us to think about the bigger picture. He said the word lesson. He said the word character. He said the phrase real world. He said, Hadley, we are asking you to write a letter to the judge. He said, we are asking you to ask for leniency. He said, this is what family does. I did not raise my voice. I did not cry. I set my bag on the kitchen chair. I unzipped the inside pocket. I took out a slim manila folder. I laid it flat on the table between the sugar bowl and the napkin holder. I said, before I answer that, I want to show you something. Inside the folder was a single sheet of paper. It was a printout from the bank's internal system. It showed the device fingerprint, the IP address, the timestamp, and the exact dollar amounts on all 3 applications. Underneath that sheet were 2 more. A copy of the police report from a frozen yogurt counter in 2006, filed and then quietly withdrawn under family pressure for a $640 withdrawal made by a minor using a forged signature. And a photograph I had taken 28 years ago on a small disposable camera of an 8-year-old girl in a white Easter dress standing on a porch while her sister wore a green felt dragon costume that did not belong to her. I tapped the top page once with my finger. I looked at my father. I said, you taught us this was a lesson in keeping better track of our things. I am keeping better track of my things now. I looked at my mother. I said, the Social Security card was in a folder on my kitchen counter. The folder was right there in plain sight. You raised a daughter who walked into my home and took it. I looked at Hollis. I said, I am not writing the letter. I picked up my bag. I picked up the folder. I walked to the door. I did not slam it. I did not look back. The porch light was on. It was 4:11 in the afternoon. I started the car and I drove home. If you have stayed with me through all of this, thank you. Tell me in the comments what part of the story is sitting with you the most. On the drive back to Boise, somewhere outside La Grande, the sun dropped behind the hills, and the inside of the car went the kind of gold that only happens for about 8 minutes in October. I talked to the 8-year-old in the Easter dress out loud. I told her the dragon costume was always hers. I told her the $640 was always hers. I told her that being unwanted by people who could not love anything they could not use was not the same as being unworthy of love. I told her that the folder she had been carrying in her body for 28 years had finally been set down on a kitchen table in a yellow house on Linden Street, and that she would not have to carry it again. I got home at 9:40. Wesley had left the porch light on. Hooper met me at the door. Camille had dropped off a foil-wrapped pan of enchiladas. There was a small note on the counter in Wesley's handwriting that said only, "Glad you are home." I stood in my kitchen in the same gray sweatshirt with the sleeves pushed up. The dishwasher hummed, the refrigerator clicked. I poured myself 1 cup of coffee, even though it was late, because some nights coffee is not about sleep. It is about sitting at a kitchen table in your own house, in your own name, with your own folder closed for good.